Hello, welcome to another Friday artwork video. So we're up to 10th edition, and this is the set. For anybody that doesn't regularly watch the channel, may not know this, but this was the set which I first opened booster packs for, was 10th edition. That's my sort of step on set. Now, these particular cards were cards that I opened a lot later when I was going through the modern era of cards and opening packs, and I got a lot for it. Well, originally it was for a different project, but I ended up opening most of them on camera apart from the early ones. But these are from that period where I opened 10 booster packs. What I'm doing is I'm saving, going through my original cards that I opened when I first got into Magic around 10th edition for a different video, and another Friday artwork video, because there's a lot more cards. So I just wanted to feature about the same amount of cards I've been featuring so far in this series. That's why I did this. So let us zoom in on this first card, Angelic Chorus, so we can actually look at the artwork, because that's why we're mainly here. I'll include links to the pack openings for this, because I've opened 10th edition cards a few times on the channel now, I think. They're just not my original ones, obviously, because they predate the channel. Blessing. It was interesting because although I got into Magic around the time of 10th edition, which was 2007, I wasn't playing Magic at all really. I was sort of just collecting the cards, and then in 2008, the sort of start of the whole saga, whatever you want to call it, or the process, the big sort of life-changing events that led to me moving to Canada permanently. And I didn't pick up on Magic again until 2010 when I moved out here, and I was taking my cards out of they'd been sort of shipped over with a load of other stuff in a big shipping container, and they sort of arrived, I don't know, a month or so into 2010, and I was opening them up and showed my wife, and she said, "Oh, you should get into collecting those again." So I had to track down some local card shops. I think at that point there were only about 2 or 3 locally. There was one shop which was just basically sold sports card, but sold Magic cards alongside it, which is fairly easy to get to. And then I think there were a couple of places in Halifax that sold Magic cards, and that was about it really. All the time, that's what all it seemed it was to me. And I think 1 or 2 of them, definitely a couple of them were doing events, and at least one was doing Friday Night Magic. But at that point, when I got back into it, really, apart from kitchen table Magic with family members, I started to really just sort of play online, and the sort of Magic collection sort of evolved as a parallel thing, pretty much, alongside playing on MTGO. So. Yeah, but these, I think this particular lot of 10th edition cards alongside a lot of the cards you've been seeing were originally bought with the idea of doing some kitchen table limited play, because I really liked limited at that point. Like building a deck with 6 packs of boosters, or 5 packs sometimes, if you were trying to cut back a bit, or even 4. I remember there was a Magic the Gathering online format with 4 boosters and building 30 card decks. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that format. There's been a number of interesting formats on Magic the Gathering online, actually. There was that one, which was building 30 card decks with 4 packs of boosters, and then the other thing they did for a while, and I don't know how long it lasted for, which was to actually offer drafting in all the sets individually. Well, I haven't quite worded that right, but when a new set came out and it was a small set, there was actually an option to draft just cards from the small set, which usually you didn't come across quite so much. Normally the small sets were drafted in combination with the larger set that they were part of. And that was pretty interesting to draft a small set like that, because they weren't really designed, I don't think, to be drafted standalone. I mean, some follow-up sets were, obviously, but they were tended to be bigger. So Rise of the Eldrazi, which was the 3rd set, but it was designed to be drafted on its own. Avacyn Restored was a 3rd set, but it was large and it was designed to be drafted on its own. But to be sitting down and, I don't know, drafting, say, Dark Steel or something like that, just completely without anything else, was always pretty amusing. So there's quite a number of cards here, not surprisingly, that I recognise a lot. So I'm just rearranging my binder on the fly here. Got myself a bit muddled up. And other cards here that I just completely forgot were in the set. I think I've said this before, I'm always interested to see in a particular set what the vanilla creatures look like. Just seeing where stuff has been positioned on the curve creature-wise, it gives you a nice thing to hang the set on sometimes, and to then sort of compare it against creatures that aren't vanilla in the set, and just see what the addition of the ability of a certain creature has done to its place on the curve, when you factor in, say, the power and toughness. And some sets they do, play around a little bit with a vanilla creature theme, or do something, just a bit of a nod to it. I don't know if this particular sort of sub-collection of 10th edition that I have has one of my favourite pieces of artwork of all time in it, which I had as a desktop art for many, many years. In fact, when I was working in the UK, I had a client that I used to do all sorts of IT work for, including things like training videos, which are a bit more, what would you say, professionally edited than what I tend to do now. I wasn't doing like, the one take thing, unedited stuff. It was all incredibly heavy edited, shot with like one of those early, it was the time, they must have been quite pricey. It was what was it, what are they called? But there was a certain digital camera that was used a lot by amateur filmmakers, I believe, at the time. Was it like a 3CCD camera? And we got hold of, and I was filming videos for these. Basically, the person I was working for was making like appliances for orthodontic work, and he was making videos on how to adjust them, because he used to make his own custom appliances which he used to sell. He was an orthodontic surgeon himself, and so I remember having to film all these videos with him doing the adjustments, and then I'd have to re-record the audio and redo the narration, but it was all incredibly heavily edited. And although we were using digital tapes, we weren't using like a chip on it, so you had to transfer it in real time. So it had to be transferred onto, we had these Macs, which I used to do all the editing on. I sort of persuaded them to order quite a high-end Mac desktop, and we did all the editing on that. So moving into black. Yeah, so anyway, I've gone off at a bit of a tangent, but what happened was when I was working there, it was around the time that I was getting into magic, and I put the particular artwork, which hopefully I'm going to find, on the desktop of the main editing computer, and then people that worked there liked it so much they started asking me to put it on their machines as the desktop artwork. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So whenever I see it, always just brings back memories of long hours spent leaning over a Mac, doing editing and voiceovers and goodness what else. And I think it's probably what ultimately made me so averse to editing my videos and doing anything like that. It was a fantastic experience, not just with that, but just getting used to having to deal with like massive files. Prior to that, I'd over the years done a lot of computing work and programming and various other things, but the files relatively were small, but it's just the machines had small drives on them. But we're in an area where you're getting larger drives, but also the files are getting very large because they're video files, and trying to like move them around and all sorts of things like that. And at that point, 2007, I think flash disks would have still been pretty expensive. So we had access to digital tapes that we were using in the cameras and a few other things to transfer the files. Here's a mortarvore, so another rare. Right, moving on to some foils. Okay, so nice vampire bat here in foil, pretty cool. And then there you go, and we've got the regular one. So again, I think both have their allure. Yeah, it's funny. I tend, in most cases, I think where there is a full version of a card, most of the time I tend to like both, I'd say. I mean, there's obviously instances where, you know, to me sometimes foiling has actually made it worse. You know, so the unfoiled version is better. And somewhere that the foil just takes a card and just makes it amazing. There's that really nice wand. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's got a wand with these little flowers around it. I can't remember the name of the card. And I've got a full one of that, and it just the flower, these lovely like little delicate flowers. They really pop. So another rare there, Bloodfire Colossus. I think it's turning into a random ramblings video whilst I bring up the artwork. But yeah, it's anybody that knows the channel knows how much I tend to tie in various things with times in my life, and this is like just such an amazing sort of set of changes I was going through. It's like in, I think, 2006 into 2007, I'd also met up with a whole new group of friends that I was going to gigs going to gigs with. This was in the UK, so there was all that going on. There's a whole new group of friends, and another friend I'd met through working for myself, who was into the same sort of stuff I was into, although not magic, but just other stuff. And then, you know, ultimately ending up in 2008, taking a trip into Nova Scotia, and everything that followed on after that. And then end of 2009, permanently moving out here after sort of doing a bit of sort of transatlantic relationship stuff, where I was travelling out from the UK to Nova Scotia like a couple of 2-3 times a year as well. So having like effectively two places I was living. So this really takes me back to that. And all the places I was hanging out in the UK as well, where I used to go and buy the cards. So when I was trying to track down like 10th edition booster packs, there were two main places that I used to buy at that point magic product from. One was one of the bookshops used to sell them, which would have been Waterstones. But there was a really cool shop in Richmond. Richmond upon Thames, I think. And I used to go there. I can't remember the name of it. And I used to go up there, and then I went up with a friend as well, and we hung out there. There was several friends actually on different occasions hang out up there. It's a lovely place to walk around. So it was going through that always reminds me, going through these always reminds me of that. I was trying to think whether there are any card shops I used to go to in London, specifically outside of, you know, more over towards Richmond, but in sort of central London. I can't really think off the top of my head actually. I remember just after 10th edition came out and seeing all the... so when 10th edition came out, I bought mainly like boosters. I bought a fat packs when I learned about fat packs. And I also bought... I think it was that point I got hold of the event decks. Not the event decks, sorry. The theme decks that I've been showing in parallel with... you know, the current videos I've been doing. And but then the whole, you know, idea of moving to Nova Scotia kicked in 2008, so I was really dialing back on adding to anything I would need to get shipped over. So I stopped buying all sorts of things, books and CDs, and I went over to sort of digital music through, well, a little bit later, but over to Spotify and stuff like that, and digitised all my CD collection and stripped down all my CD cases and put them into flight cases and stuff like that. Yeah, I was just trying to rationalise everything, so I wasn't trying to add any more stuff to my collection of stuff. And, so yeah, I used to look longingly at the Lorwyn theme decks all the time, right? And it was really difficult because at that point my business was doing really well as well, the one that I was running in the UK, so like I had a bit of disposable income, and it's like, no, I'm not going to buy anything. Every week I'd always go just window shopping with a friend, and we'd end up in you know, we'd look but wouldn't buy, and I'd end up in the bookshop in one of the ones that had them, and just sort of look at them. I think I probably might have been buying the odd booster pack of 10th here and there, but I don't think so. I think there was definitely a moratorium on that. So yeah, another rare. Here's Herald. So, yeah, let's see it here actually. I was going to say my favourite. Yeah. So the card I used to really like, or still do, in green in 10th edition, and I remember the artwork better than I remember the name, but I'm pretty sure the card was called Upwelling. But this particular set or collection or sub-collection, whatever you want to call it, I don't have it, but I definitely was drawn towards the green cards for some reason. So, you know, the giant growth, the grizzly bears, the giant spiders, that sort of stuff. Gaia's Herald. Yeah. And of course the other thing in here, so we have a Joiner's Adept, and you've seen it with the theme decks that I've been looking at, and we'll be looking at again on another video this week. You know, the fact that there were legendary creatures in this set, and quite a number of them. And here we have one, although this was one that wasn't in the theme decks. This was Mirari. So yeah, what they did was there was, I think, wasn't there two sets for each of the colours? So there's the Wooburg ones that went in the theme, that also ended up in the theme decks. But then there was also another Wooburg cycle of legendary creatures which weren't in the theme decks. Of which I also have a little mini set somewhere, which I think I've mentioned, where I think I tried to track down all of the ones in their original printings because they were reprints, being a core set. And I think the only one that I didn't get was the older copy of a particular card, and it's gone for a moment actually. It was the Red Goblin Legendary. But yeah, it was interesting to see the cards in their original sets as well, and that occurred obviously a lot later. Was it Squee, I think? Wasn't there a Squee in there? I think that was the one. So we're in a core set at this point in time, and so you're not going to see any multicoloured action, I don't think. Still sort of off limits for core sets. We've included the legendaries. Not multicolour. Didn't want to confuse any of the newer players, I believe. Spined worm. So of course at this point in core sets they just had so much to choose from. And I think this was also around the time, so you could find out obviously quite a bit about Magic Online at that time in 2007. Interestingly enough, although I wasn't using Magic the Gathering Online, which was out there, they had a really cool soft piece of software which you could download from the site, where you could learn to play Magic, and it was pretty usable. It was almost like a forerunner of, that Jewels of the Planeswalker product, actually. Yeah, very similar to that, but just with fewer decks to choose from. But it was pretty playable. I even got a client into playing it just to take their mind off their other stuff, basically, they were dealing with at the time. So we got Citadel Flute, so we moved on to the colourless stuff. And yes, a form of Lucky Charm. There was a cycle in the set. Just got one of these for this particular collection. Dragon Claw. It's a Mantis engine. It's funny, it's unusual here as well. I've done something that I don't usually do with these. I normally separate out all my tokens and I just have a token box with them all in. But here, actually you've got a couple of tokens, so we should have a look at those as well. So there's a Wasp token that was pulled from a booster, and a Dragon token. And then does anybody else remember these? So in that sort of promo slot, whatever you want to call it, in addition to tokens, they also had these. Do you remember these tips and tricks things? So a lot of these were the 2-card combo things. So these were repeated in the booklet that came with the fat packs back then as well. In fact, I think at that point they used to print some pretty cool deck listings as well for suggestion decks to play. But yeah, so there were all these 2-card combo tips and tricks cards. Then there was a thing about legendaries and tokens as well. You've got this, which was about building a deck. I've probably got a ton of these actually in my main, my sort of fat pack box. Because back then, of course, that fat pack was super nice. And like I said, I'll show it to you in a later artwork video, because it came with like double two card trays instead of just a single one, which meant they didn't really need to put in all that additional packaging that they used to do as well. So there we have it. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed looking through these, and it was interesting just prattling on about what I was doing at that time, because like I said, it does bring back so many memories. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.